The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the small farmhouse. Dust swirled in the evening wind, rustling the dry leaves in the yard. The old soldier walked slowly down the dirt path, his boots heavy, his hands shaking slightly. After many years, he was finally home. Home, but not the same home he had left. Time had changed everything. He paused at the gate and looked at the farmhouse. The paint was faded, the wood worn and gray. Memories of war, of long marches in bitter cold, came rushing back. His chest tightened. For decades, he had fought in battles that no one wanted to remember. Now, he had returned to peace, but peace felt strange, almost uncomfortable. In his pocket, a letter sat folded neatly. He took it out and stared at it. The envelope was yellowed with age, but it was unopened. His mail-order bride had sent it many years ago. He had never opened it before. He had never had the courage. The soldier's hands trembled as he held it. "Maybe it's too late," he whispered to himself. His voice sounded strange, like a ghost from another life. Memories of lonely nights, empty barracks, and distant battlefields pressed against him. He entered the farmhouse. Dust covered the floors, and the air smelled of old wood and memories. He placed his bag on the table and sat down. His eyes rested on the envelope again. Slowly, carefully, he slid his fingers under the flap. His heart pounded in his chest. Before opening it, he let his mind wander back to the past. He remembered the day he had first enlisted. He was young, strong, and filled with dreams of heroism. War had changed him. It had taken his friends, his innocence, and almost his will to live. Every battle left a scar, some visible, many hidden deep in his soul. After the war, he returned to the quiet life of farming. Crops and soil replaced guns and explosions. It was peaceful, yes, but it was lonely. His hands were worn and calloused from years of hard work. His back ached, his eyes tired, but he continued to work the land because it gave him purpose. Still, there was always a shadow over his heart. The shadow of the letter, the shadow of a woman he had never met. He remembered her photograph, the one that had come with her first letter. She had a gentle smile, eyes full of hope. And for years, he had avoided her letters. Fear, shame, and the thought that he was unworthy had kept him silent. Now, sitting in the quiet farmhouse, he could no longer ignore it. He unfolded the letter carefully. The paper was fragile, almost like it would crumble under his fingers. The handwriting was neat and delicate, and his eyes traced every word. "My dear," it began. "I have waited many years to hear from you. I hope you are safe. I hope you are well. I dream of the day we will meet." The soldier's chest tightened. He swallowed hard. His voice trembled as he whispered, "I should have written, long ago." He remembered the first time he wanted to write her. He had seen the letters waiting in his pack during a cold night in a distant camp. But the war never gave him time. Battles, marches, and orders left no room for words of love. And then, after the war, he thought he had lost his chance. Shame kept him silent. He looked around the farmhouse, at the quiet fields stretching into the distance. Each furrow in the soil reminded him of the years he had spent alone. And now, holding the letter, he felt the weight of every lost moment. Outside, the wind picked up. The sound of the old windmill creaking against its supports echoed through the farmyard. The soldier shivered, not from the cold, but from the truth he could no longer hide. He had hurt someone who had trusted him, someone who had waited with hope. He sat at the old wooden table, staring at the letter. Memories of the battlefield and the lonely nights in the farm blended together. He thought of the times he had almost written, almost sent a letter, almost reached out. Every almost now felt like a failure, a lost opportunity. Yet, there was something in the letter that made him pause. Between the lines, he sensed patience, forgiveness, and a quiet hope. She had waited, and she had not forgotten. His heart ached, and tears formed in his eyes. For the first time in decades, he felt both fear and hope together, a dangerous, powerful mix. He whispered to the empty room, "I have so much to say. I hope it is not too late." The sun sank below the horizon, leaving streaks of orange and pink across the sky. The farmhouse was silent except for the gentle creak of the windmill and the distant rustle of leaves. The soldier picked up a pen and a fresh sheet of paper. His hand shook, but he began to write. He wrote of the war, of the battles and losses, of the nights spent in lonely camps. He wrote of the farming, the hard work, and the aching silence of years spent alone. Most of all, he wrote his apology, heartfelt and honest, to the woman who had waited for him all these years. As he wrote, he felt a strange calm settle over him. The fear of rejection, the weight of years lost, and the bitterness of silence seemed to lift slightly with each word. It was as if the act of writing itself had begun to heal some of the old wounds. By the time the sky turned dark and the first stars appeared, the soldier had finished. He folded the paper carefully and placed it in an envelope. He did not seal it yet. He could not. He wanted one last moment to gather courage before sending it. He stepped outside the farmhouse and looked at the horizon. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it a sense of possibility. The old soldier felt a flicker of hope in his heart, a hope that, despite the years of war and solitude, it was not too late for love, for forgiveness, for connection. And in that quiet moment, under the first stars of the evening, he made a silent promise. Tomorrow, he would send the letter. Tomorrow, he would face the future he had long avoided. And perhaps, just perhaps, the woman who had waited for him all these years would finally know the truth of his heart. The night grew deeper, and the farmhouse stood in silence. Inside, an old soldier sat with a trembling hand, a letter in front of him, and a heart full of hope and regret, a heart ready to reach out across the years and the miles, to make amends at last. The wind carried a strange stillness over the farmhouse. The old soldier sat by the dim light of a lantern, the letter from his bride lying open before him. But tonight was not about reading, it was about speaking. Not aloud, yet. Tonight, he was talking to the shadows of the room, confessing the truth he had kept buried for decades. He touched the paper lightly, tracing the words she had written so long ago. The paper was fragile, like the past itself. A photograph slipped out, and he caught it without thinking. She was smiling in it, young and full of hope, her eyes bright and unwavering. The soldier pressed the photo to his chest. His lips moved, forming words she could not yet hear. "I am sorry," he whispered, the sound barely more than the rustle of the wind. "I should have written. I should have reached out. I should have been there." The room seemed to listen, shadows flickering across the walls like memories dancing. He remembered the first time he had considered writing her, letters lost in a distant war, envelopes destroyed by mud and rain, days and nights when he had longed to reach out but had no courage. And now, so many years later, he faced the truth: silence had been the cruelest weapon. Outside, the fields stretched like a dark ocean under the moonlight. The soldier's eyes moved to the horizon. Somewhere out there, she might still be waiting, reading his words in her mind, wondering if he would ever explain, ever apologize. The thought pressed on him like a heavy stone. He picked up his pen. His hand shook, but not from weakness, only from the weight of what he had to say. He began to write again, slowly, carefully, as though every word might break him or save him. "My dearest," he wrote, "I have failed you. I have let years slip away, leaving nothing but silence. The war, the battles, the endless nights alone, I could not bring myself to write. I feared I was not worthy of your hope, your trust, your love. And now, I fear I have lost too much time." He paused, staring at the words. Each one seemed heavy with decades of regret. He remembered nights on distant battlefields, the cold biting at his bones, the screams of friends echoing in his mind. He remembered coming home, the farm quiet but lonely, and the letters he had ignored, thinking it safer to avoid disappointment, thinking he could not face her. But now he faced her in every word. The pen moved faster, urgency flowing into the ink. He wrote of his years on the farm, the hard labor, the nights under a sky full of stars, the ache of solitude. He wrote honestly, without embellishment, without excuses. "I cannot undo the past," he wrote, "but I can try to be honest now. I hope you will forgive me, even if it is only a little. I hope you will understand that my silence came not from lack of care, but from fear and unworthiness. I am not the man I was, and perhaps I am not the man you hoped for, but my heart has always been yours. the wind whispered outside. The soldier looked up as if expecting an answer carried on the breeze. But there was only the soft rustle of leaves and the distant cry of an owl. Silence, yet it felt alive, waiting, urging him to continue. He folded the letter carefully and placed it in the envelope. But before sealing it, he paused. Something told him this moment was more than just an apology, it was a bridge, a chance to reconnect, a fragile hope suspended between the past and the future. For the first time in decades, he imagined her reading the letter. He imagined her reaction, her expression, her voice. A part of him trembled, fearing anger or disappointment. Another part dared to hope, daring to dream that perhaps, after all these years, she had not forgotten him. He sealed the envelope with trembling hands. Then he placed it on the table, staring at it for a long time. The moonlight fell on the paper, silver and quiet, like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. Suddenly, a sound from the edge of the yard made him turn. A soft rustle of footsteps, or maybe just the wind. His heart skipped a beat. He gripped the table edge, as if the envelope itself contained the answer to a question he had not yet asked. In that moment, the old soldier realized something: the apology alone was not enough. He needed courage, the courage to face the unknown, the courage to finally act, to reach beyond decades of regret and take the first step toward her. He rose from the chair and stepped outside. The air was cold, and the farm stretched silently under the stars. He imagined riding into town, delivering the letter himself, looking into her eyes, hoping for forgiveness, hoping for understanding. But the journey would not be easy. Time had changed them both, and the path forward was uncertain. And yet, he could not turn back. The weight of years lost pressed on him, urging him forward. He whispered to the night, "I will find a way. I will make this right, even if it takes everything I have left." For the first time in a long time, hope bloomed in his chest, fragile but undeniable. The apology was only the beginning. What came next would test him, and perhaps, finally, bring him the chance he had dreamed of for so long, a chance to face the woman who had waited for him, to show that love, even after decades, could endure. The wind carried a soft sigh through the fields, as if answering him. Tomorrow, the journey would begin. But tonight, under the moonlight and shadows, the old soldier had written the words that might change everything. And for the first time in years, he allowed himself to imagine a future where the past no longer held him prisoner. The first light of dawn broke over the horizon, painting the fields in gold and silver. The old soldier stood at the edge of the farm, the envelope clutched tightly in his hand. It wasn't just a letter anymore, it was a key to something he had long believed lost, a chance at forgiveness, a chance at love. But he did not mount his old horse or walk down the familiar road. Instead, he took a deep breath and stepped into something new, a small, sleek hovercart, its engines humming softly under his weight. He had built it years ago, a simple invention to ease the burden of farming, but today it would carry him toward his past, toward her. The countryside rolled past in a blur of green and brown. The soldier's mind was a storm of memories, battles fought in distant lands, nights spent in lonely barracks, years of silence that had stretched between him and the woman who had waited. And yet, beneath the fear, there was a spark of hope, a fragile flame that refused to die. As he approached the small town where she lived, he slowed the hovercart, peering at the familiar streets that seemed almost frozen in time. The world had changed around him, new technology quietly humming in the corners of the town, drones patrolling the skies, automated carts gliding along cobblestones. But here, in this quiet place, everything felt the same as it had all those years ago. He parked the hovercart at the edge of a garden that looked like it had been tended with love. Flowers bloomed in neat rows, their colors vivid in the morning light. And there she was, older, yes, but unmistakably her. She turned, and their eyes met. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The old soldier stepped forward, his legs trembling but his heart steady. He had rehearsed these words for decades in his mind, and now they had to be real. I have something for you," he said, holding out the envelope. His voice cracked, but he did not falter. She hesitated, her eyes searching his. Then, slowly, she took the letter. Her fingers brushed his, and for a moment, the years of distance melted away. She opened it carefully, reading each word, her expression unreadable. The soldier waited, heart hammering, as silence stretched between them. Then, a small smile appeared, hesitant but real. "You wrote all of this, for me," she whispered. He nodded, tears welling in his eyes. "I should have written long ago. I was afraid, unworthy. But my heart has always been yours." Her eyes softened, and she reached out, taking his hand. "I waited because I believed you would come back. I hoped you would see the truth." A gentle breeze stirred the garden, carrying the scent of flowers and soil. The soldier felt a weight lift from his chest. The years of regret, the long nights of loneliness, the silence, they had not destroyed hope. Not entirely. And then, a quiet hum filled the air. A small drone, one he had built himself, hovered nearby. Its sensors blinked as it surveyed the reunion. He had always imagined this technology as a tool for farming, but today it seemed to witness something more, something deeply human. Love. Redemption. Forgiveness. She laughed softly, a sound that made him feel alive in a way he hadn't for decades. "You've changed," she said, shaking her head, almost in disbelief. "But, in all the right ways." He smiled, a mixture of relief and awe. "And you've stayed the same, waiting, all these years." They sat together in the garden, sharing stories of the decades that had passed. He spoke of the war, of the battles and loss. She spoke of waiting, of hope, of dreams that had never faded. And in the quiet of that morning, under the soft glow of sunlight and the watchful eyes of his little drone, they began to rebuild what time and distance had tried to steal. The soldier realized that life had changed, but some things endured. The war had taken much, and the years of silence had been painful, but love, even delayed, could survive. He had learned that courage was not just about battles, it was about facing the truth, speaking it, and being willing to start again. As the sun climbed higher, they rose and walked together through the garden. The hovercart waited, but for now, they had no need for it. Hand in hand, they moved forward, step by step, into a future that was uncertain but filled with hope. The old soldier looked at her and whispered, more to himself than to her, "War took a lot from me, but love gave me back everything." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it a sense of peace. The farm, the garden, the letters, the hovercart, they were all reminders that life, no matter how hard, could still offer second chances. And as they disappeared into the morning light, the world seemed to pause, honoring the quiet victory of forgiveness and enduring love.